Yes, welcome back. This is F a Rap Critic. I'm your boy Malik 16. And no, it's not a dream. It wasn't a dream. If you didn't catch the reference, we are still going over the classic album that just turned 40 years old this year, the self titled debut by Run-DMC. This is category 2, where we go over the rap performance on this album. And with no further ado, we're going to jump right into it. Y'all know what it is. All right, the first dimension in category 2 is dimension 1, the personality and charisma. Two rappers on the mic in this group. And while they're doing a lot of back and forth, I don't know how much you get to see their personality shine, but what becomes very evident is that there's personality there. I don't know if there's a lot of room for charisma, but the way they're feeding off of each other, you quickly get the sense of that these are two individuals who complement one another, and they're coming from a space of positive aggression. You know, they are ripping the mic. DMC refers to himself as the devastating mic controller, and it becomes very believable because they're hitting you with energy on every track. And I mentioned in category 1 that there's a youthful spirit present, and so it becomes something easy to get into and to feel because they're making relatable references, right? They're making local references, day-to-day life references, New York references, commercial references. Send it back in 30 days, but you gotta act now. So there's levity here. They're not taking themselves too seriously, even though they're being aggressive. They're letting you know that aggression is relegated to how they approach the mic, not aggression towards just any old body. It's just like, don't be a sucker and try to take this mic from me. Other than that, I'm down to give you satisfaction guaranteed. And I feel you on the struggles of the world, because I know these are some hard times. So there's a relatable factor there, there's a youthful spirit, and there's a sense of levity and aggression. That's as far as I can glean personality from this album. If any of you pick up on any other elements of personality, please feel free to share them in the comments. I'd love to hear how you define that and can maybe point it out better than I can. But something to consider on a scale from 1 to 5 heartbeats. It takes us to dimension 2, the suspension of disbelief versus the believability. Okay, so this is Run-DMC, but they are not assuming any characters. I think the idea of them just introducing themselves as rappers is what's here. So it's not a suspension of disbelief album, but because it's all in the vein of MCing, there's not this big push to believe what's going on, right? So when you hear Run talk about limousines, caviar, and champagne bubble baths, it's aspirational, but it's the only time that he's mentioning luxury to that extent. And so it doesn't become as eyebrow raising, because these are the same guys that you hear and tell you, I feel you, because I know that this is what's going on in the world and on the streets. And they're mostly talking about what's done on the microphone, on the wheels still. And so it's very rooted in their introduction to the game, and it doesn't give you a lot of space to scrutinize or buy in too deeply to who they are or who they're saying they are, because they're really not saying more than being MCs and understanding the problems of the world today. So it always comes down to how much do you believe Run-DMC? How good of a job did they do at making you believe what they do on this mic, their claims of rocking the microphone? And that's something to consider on a scale from 1 to 5 heartbeats. All right, dimension 3, the delivery and use of voice. Perhaps one of the most iconic delivery approaches ever solidified on wax is what Run-DMC do as a tag team duo, feeding off of each other, building upon the chanting style that was introduced by the early 80s pioneers, again, from Park Jam tapes who didn't get a chance to really record super memorable albums. Those are who DMC references as big influences on the way that they approach at least 4 of the songs on this album. 30 Days, Wake Up, Hard Times. It's like there's a definite chanty call and response style that's being brought, and when they go back and forth, you're hearing the great contrast between their voices. It's like Run is one step away from having a lisp like his brother Russell, but there's so much of a casual confidence there, where DMC is belting like the superhero rapper that he believes himself to be. And the way that we've gotten to know these two gentlemen over the years, from their own descriptions and their own windows to their worlds through documentaries and reality shows and interviews, you understand that makes complete sense. And then understanding how the group all came together and this album came together, it is the aha when you hear a track like Suck MCs, and it's the only song on the album where you hear Run rap as smooth and almost quiet compared to how his raps out on the rest of the album. He's like, 2 years ago, a friend of mine. You're not hearing him rap like that at any point again in Run-DMC's career, honestly. And a lot of that has to do with how he was billing himself when he was looking at himself as a soloist, Run Love, or the son of Curtis Blow. He's trying not to bring in that Curtis Blow feeling, because that was the sound of an older wave of rappers, right? Where it was disco club party influence, radio voice, and they were trying to go for Park Jam voice. And so he's finding his happy medium between that, because Curtis Blow had the ladies man lane going for him, right? He's posing with his shirt off and stuff, and he's like, yeah, I'm smooth, but I also can go bring it up. But he's not trying to go that far. So he's like, and yeah, but that, that's just his rap talk voice. DMC comes out the gate yelling his raps, right? And since kindergarten I acquired the knowledge, and at the 12th grade I went straight to college. He raps like that throughout the entire album. Run, you hear that one variation and distinction of that song, because that could have been either his first go at it, or that was how he was going to approach being a soloist. But it becomes clear that what they were solidifying and owning and went on to really make their signature sound was this belting out back and forth, line for line style. And they do that with an exaggerated lean in to their lines. So Hard Times is all about that. Yeah, and so those are some of the hallmarks of delivery. They're going to finish each other's sentences sometimes, and it just makes for memorable synergy. So all of that is something to consider on a scale from 1 to 5 heartbeats when you are thinking about delivery on this album. Takes us to dimension 4, the flow. I mentioned how they do that chanty flow for 4 songs. The other 4 songs is where you're getting more continuous traditional rap style. Hollis Crew being the most. I'm spitting. There's less open space. They're filling it with more syllables and a rhythmic pattern that's going on for longer bar counts. There's barely a hook in there. They're going back and forth in different segments of 2 bars to 2 bars, 4 bars to 4 bars, 8 bars to 8 bars, and line for line. There's just no definitive structure, just to showcase their rap skills. With the song Jam Master Jay, it's a little bit more structured than that, but it's still more continuous flow happening. And the same thing with, of course, Suck MCs, which we keep talking about, and Rockbox. And DMC noted that Larry was a big guide when it came to that, because they would have just kept rapping through the whole track till the track ended, and he told them the parts in the song where they should breathe and do the huh And then that's where you hear the little cowbell solo or you hear the guitar solo, and those things made it radio ready, because otherwise it just would have been a long rap, right? So those are the only variations of flow. Suck MCs being an onslaught, really, because I mean, Run is barely doing commas. He's like, there's no opening. So that gives you enough sense of variety of flows, even though the chanty style gets redundant. It's balanced by the other four songs being so like right at you and direct and ongoing. Something to consider on a scale from 1 to 5 heartbeats. That takes us to dimension 5, the wordplay, bar intent. Yeah, you're not getting wordplay here. 30 days because it's being packaged a certain way. There's commercial references because it's being stylized like a commercial and offered. And that's kind of the extent. There's not any clever rhetorical devices being used. It's very rudimentary rap. And so with that, not a lot of room for that. If you consider that a weakness, that is something to consider on a scale from 1 to 5 heartbeats. If you consider it a strength, also something to consider on a scale from 1 to 5 heartbeats. Some people feel like that's a true test of MC and to still be able to hold the listener's attention and stand the test of time without all of the clever, witty rhyme devices. Okay, so dimension 6, the overall quotability, poetic wisdom, or punchlines. Punchlines, not a thing really yet in hip hop to that degree, except for in the performance spaces, right? The battle scene, the tapes, the live shows going against someone else, and telling competition what you're telling them. The battle tinged raps here are still straightforward insults and put downs, right? You're a sucker MC, you can't be like me. You a $5 boy, I'm the $1 million man. Poetic wisdom, you can argue that some of the sentiments being shared on tracks like It's Like That are poetic, right? So if I read a line like, delusion is the word that's used by me when I'm not heard. I just go through life with my glasses blurred. That's not the average statement made in a rap song. That is poetic language being used. And so you get these fleeting moments, few and far between, but it doesn't stop this from being one of the most quoted albums in rap history because the success of the singles. So it goes on to have lines used so many ways, especially from sucker MCs. So many tracks from here have been sampled for other songs. Jam Master Jay, the beat alone has been sampled for a dozen other rap songs. Something to consider on a scale from 1 to 5 heartbeats. All right, so dimension 7, the concepts. I already mentioned that 30 days is a concept. The rap is being delivered to you as if it's a product, infomercial style, which was all the rage in the 80s. Pretty new thing, so very popular. Like, here's the guarantee. Here's what you're getting, whether it's in a relationship context, you're messing with me, you're dealing with me, or an audience to performer context. Like, hey, you come to my show, you're guaranteed to get this. You buy my album, you're going to get satisfaction. If not, hit us in 30 days. And so the DMC line where he's saying, you got to act now, really brilliant way to put a bow on the concept and really let you know that's what you're dealing with here. Wake Up is the other concept song, so it's ironic that the two lesser known songs are the conceptual ones, because it's Run depicting this landscape, this fictional utopia, as I mentioned in category 1, which capitalizes on a hip-hop trope of this perfect world and what I would do if I could reshape and reimagine the world as I see best, what I would get rid of and what I would have more of. So, 2 concepts on an 8-song album in 1984. Come on now. Doing more than what people are doing now. So something to consider on a scale from 1 to 5 heartbeats. That takes us to the content dimensions. Dimension 8, the externalized content. That's really the whole scope of the content on this album. You're barely getting Dimension 9, the internalized content, because anything that's being talked about is not from an autobiographical space. The most autobiographical info you're getting is I go to St. John's University. Boom. Right? Everything else is commentary on society. It's not even any specific person, any specific group. It's like life. I mentioned this before. It seemed like early 80s rap had way more of a sense of responsibility or a sense of scope to talk about life, which is, if you think about it now, really bold. Not to talk about the world, or all I know being the block. It's like, no, these are global truths that I know to be widely shared by humanity. And even if it was a New York-centric viewpoint, it's delivered so universally. It's like, yeah, I know it hurts, but it can get worse. It can be worse. Those are some topics. Jam Master Jay, they're not talking about his life, they're talking about his DJing skills. So, you can consider that low for internal and high for external. Or, maybe you feel like because it's so short, you're not going to take any points away for the internal because of that. But all of that is something to consider on a scale from 1 to 5 heartbeats for both the external and internal content on this album. Takes us to the final dimension, Dimension 10, the storytelling. All right, Wake Up. Wake Up is a story. The whole picture and scenario is being painted of this fantasy world. Waking up, it's a dream. The hook is telling you it's a dream. And they're acknowledging throughout the song that this can't be real. It has to be a dream because it's so far from the reality we actually exist in. So there you go. That box is checked off, along with it checking off the box for a conceptual song. Again, doing more on a short album in 1984 than a lot of albums right now do, with all the sophisticated advancement we claim to have made since then. So something to consider on a scale from 1 to 5 heartbeats. How important is that storytelling to you? And with that, we conclude the Category 2 review and breakdown of the classic album, which is now 40 years old, Run-DMC. All right. If you haven't heard this album, go acquaint yourself with it. It's a really quick listen, just like these episodes were quick. And if you've not acquainted yourself with the rapruler.com, now's the perfect time to go. Leave your rankings for the albums that we have covered. And we're still building this global hip-hop community. Y'all know what it is. Until next time, when you join us for the next episode, F a Rap Critic. They talk about it while I live it. Word to meth.